Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nancy Campbell, and I'm happy to welcome you to worship today. Some of us are here in the sanctuary worshiping in this room together. Some are participating at home or somewhere else while streaming. Let me say this, all are welcome at Holmeswood Baptist Church. If you're with us for the first time today, we want to offer a special word of welcome and to ask you to give us a bit of information about yourself. You can use the QR code that's on the screen. It's also in the bulletin. Or if you're in the pew, there should be a visitor's card at the front, or in the pew rack in front of you. I have a few announcements this morning. Let me say, if you give us your information, we will make a $10 donation in your honor to Hillcrest Transitional Housing. The announcements today, Vacation Bible School is almost here. It's July 8th through 12th. There's still room for some more children to register, but space is limited. You can register online through What's Happening, or you can contact the church office by phone. Please note there are copies of a little flyer in your bulletin today. Please take that, give it to your friends or neighbors, leave it in a coffee shop, wherever you think someone might see it that would have children to bring. And I understand there are extra copies at the back in the welcome area. KC Bites. How many of you know what KC Bites is? Good. Occasionally, one of our pastors will host a meal at a local restaurant with everyone buying their own meal. There's no real agenda except to be together and to get to know one another. The schedule's on the screen right now. It will be in our What's Happening emails as well. I can attest to it being a lot of fun and an opportunity to spend time with folks that maybe I don't see very often as I come and go in my regular routines here at church. So I hope you'll plan to come to one or more of those. And then we have Open Doors coming up soon. David will be leading a special session of Open Doors. It meets during the BFG hour, and this unit will be titled, What is a Baptist? It's an interesting topic in these days when our Baptist brothers and sisters are in the news so often, and I think David will have some good insights to offer us on that. As we get ready to worship God, I want to ask you, if you would, to take a moment with me to center yourself and prepare yourself for worship. I invite you to close your eyes, if that's comfortable for you. And I invite you to relax your body. Pay attention to your breath as you breathe in and breathe out. And now I ask you to focus your mind and open your heart to our loving God, the one who gave us life, the one who sustains us every day, the one who calls us to lives of faithfulness and loving service to our neighbors. Let us worship God together.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance ways. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun is shining down on me, when the worlds fall as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering. Though there's pain in the offering, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Good morning, Holmeswood. It is good to be in this place together. It is good to worship with you. Welcome once again. We are glad that you are here. Glad to be in the presence of God together this morning. As we move on in worship, we're going to learn a new song, actually a song that the youth learned in their time at camp. It's called Reckless Love. If you checked your What's Happening email this week, you would have seen a link to that song. I'll be sending those out each time we learn a new song so that you can have a chance to hear it before we sing it on Sunday morning. But let's learn this chorus together. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. You all sound great. Let's sing together. Spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, was your foe, still your love fought me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, till you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, right till I'm down, leaving 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
All right, I invite the children to come forward for our children's time here on the front pew. Thank you for learning that song for our youth. Some of them are here this morning. I want you just to imagine 150 youth with lights and louder music than this, singing this at the top of their lungs, that song. I got the pleasure to experience that, and then I was humming this song for weeks. So thank you, Michael, for letting us sing that this morning. All right. Good morning, you all. Thank you for coming to church this morning. We are so glad you are here with us today. I thought today I would like for everybody to hold your hands up in front of your eyes and look at them. Look at your hands really close. What do you see? Do you see wrinkles in yours like I see in mine? Do you have fingernail polish on? Or dirt under your fingernails? Oh, I see, you've got some markers on yours. That's pretty neat.
I even put a Sharpie on
A Sharpie on your fingernails? Yeah, they're painted or not painted. Can you wiggle them like this? Do they wiggle? All right. Can you make a fist? And let it go. One more time. Tight fist. And let it go. Hands are pretty amazing, aren't they? God gave us these amazing hands that we can do all kinds of things with them as part of our bodies. I wonder, one of the things that I like to do, and wonder the last time you held somebody's hand. When do you hold hands with somebody? What are some times that we do that?
Cross the street.
To cross the street, holding hands if you cross the street. How does holding hands make you feel when you've got to cross the street? Safe. Yeah. What are some other times we hold hands with somebody? When you're playing a game, like Ring Around the Rosie. How do you feel when you hold somebody's hand and you're playing Ring Around the Rosie? Good. Feels really good. All right, what else? Other times we hold hands. Take somebody's hand.
I hold my sister's hand this morning in the bed.
That was say that. Oh, good. That was good.
I said, I hold my sister's hand this morning in the bed so she could wake up.
She held her sister's hand this morning in the bed so she would wake up, helping her wake up. How does it feel when somebody holds your hand and you're maybe in bed and they're helping wake you up?
Great.
Great. Oh, yeah.
A little
Yeah.
sleepy.
What?
A little sleepy.
A little sleepy, yeah. How about this one? Do you ever hold hands like this? What's it called when you do this? Shake. Can you do it? Do you want to do it? Shake hands. Hello. Nice to meet you. How does that feel? And what feeling are we doing here?
Happy.
Happy. Welcome. They help us feel welcome. What about when have you ever held hands or had somebody hold your hand when you were sick? When you're laying down? Any of you been, if I've ever been to the hospital and held somebody's hand, makes them feel better, safe. Okay, in our Bible story today that Pastor David is going to read to us in just a little bit, Jesus holds somebody's hand. Jesus is going to take somebody by the hand and hold their hand. Now, I'm not going to tell you who it is because I want you to listen really close here in a little bit when Pastor David reads us the scripture, and I want to see if you can catch and notice whose hand Jesus holds in this story.
I know.
And then, when you are going home after church, I want you to ask your parents if they figured it out. And talk to them and say, did you catch it? Who was it? What happened? And see if you might have understood or think about what that person felt when Jesus held their hand, okay? Because we're going to be wondering, what would it be like if Jesus held our hand? What does it feel like? Have you ever wondered what God's hand might feel like? Will you pray with me? Our God, we thank you so much that you've given us these bodies that have ways of touching one another in ways that can be very loving and supporting and helping us to feel welcome, safe, and wanted and loved. Help us to be wise in touching one another with our hands that bring your love closer to us. In your name we pray. Amen. We have some pictures if you want to color, or if you can sit quietly with your parents, you can do that too.
When we must bear persistent pain and suffer with no cure in sight, come, Holy Presence, breathe your peace. with gifts of warmth and healing light. Support us as we learn new ways to care for bodies newly frail. Help us endure and live with love. Hear our complaint when patience fails. We thank you for the better days when we may smile to greet the sun, to do your work and clearing mind, and bless your name when day is done. In ease or pain, in life and death, to you our fragile lives belong, and so we trust you in all things. You are our hope, our health, our song.
You do not walk alone. It seems to me you could make a really strong argument that that might be one of the centerpieces of the gospel. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. I am with you. Emmanuel. Do not walk alone. It's good to be back with you. Last week I went back and listened to the sermon by Reverend Tracy Woods, and thank you for extending your sense of hospitality to her. Her name might mean something to you. On our prayer sheet to send out each week on the long-term prayer is the name Titus Woods. That is her son, whom she mentioned in the sermon last week, who is needing a liver transplant. You have already been partnering with Tracy in ministry and in the goodness of God before you even knew it. Thank you for that. I'm always grateful to go on vacation and come back and find out that y'all haven't changed the locks on the church, that my key still works. So thank you for allowing me time away. The sermon this week, this Sunday, is coming from the Gospel of Mark. As we go through Mark's story in Mark's Gospel, Mark will tell stories very quickly. You'll hear the word immediately littered throughout the Gospel of Mark, Jesus, constantly going. There are lots of healing stories in Mark's Gospel and Luke's Gospel. And today we're going to hear a couple of the stories in Mark's telling of the story of Jesus healing folk. Jesus touching them, or them touching Jesus. What I encourage you to do is, as we hear in these stories this week, just make a mental note. How many times do you hear the word touch that Jesus does or is being touched? Somebody touches Jesus. Just count that. You'll see this will littered throughout these stories. I also want to give a quick, very pastoral caveat that we are talking about touch today. The title of the sermon is The Power of Touch. And I also want to name that in news stories and in lives today, touch can be a very non-sacred thing, a hostile thing. In fact, if we hear stories in the news more times than not, when it's associated with touch, it's not very holy things. Not all touch is good, is what I'm trying to say. What I will make the argument, though, is that when Jesus touches, it leans towards life-giving, life wholeness, more completeness. If you are in a situation or if you are causing touch, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually, that decreases wholeness, makes less than, makes someone feel smaller than, or takes away goodness in life, that is not of Jesus. It's evil, it's bad. That's when police need to get involved. That's when counselors need to come into play. Do you hear what I'm saying? If you need to talk to someone, while I'm not a professional counselor, I will be a listening ear and help connect you to more professionals if you're in that space. But whenever a church, whenever a person, whenever a people lean towards touch physically, emotionally, spiritually, that brings about goodness, wholeness, better than this, the movement of God is somewhere in that space. The power of touch. Mark tells the story this way. In Mark chapter 5, verses 21 through 43, it's a Markan sandwich, two stories in which a middle story helps interpret the surrounding buns of the story. Mark says it this way. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and Jesus was by the lake. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue, whose name was Jairus, came up to Jesus, and when he saw Jesus, Jairus fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "Jesus, my little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and that she may live." And so Jesus went with Jairus. And a large crowd followed with him and pressed in on him. So as Jesus was going to Jairus' house, there was a woman who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years. Why, she had endured much by many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was still bleeding. She was not better. Rather, she grew worse. She, though, had heard about Jesus and came up to him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, "But if I touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately, Jesus, her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately, aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about the crowd and said, "Hey, who touched my clothes?" And the apostles, the disciples around him, and said, "Jesus, you got to be kidding me. There's a whole crowd of folk around you. They're pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" Jesus looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell before Jesus and told him the whole truth. Jesus said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." Now, while he was speaking these things, some people came from the leader's house, from Jairus' house, to say, "Jairus, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Your daughter, though, is dead. It took too long for the healer to arrive. Why trouble this teacher any further?" But overhearing what they had said, Jesus said to Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, who was the brother of James. And when they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, Jesus saw a commotion. There were people who were weeping and wailing loudly. When Jesus entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? This child is not dead. No, she is simply sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then Jesus put all the crowd outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and they went in where the child was. Jesus then took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. Now she was about 12 years old. At this, they were overcome with amazement. Yet the mark in secret, Jesus strictly ordered them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. Touch. Jesus grabbing a hand. Jesus touching folk. The crowd pressing in on him. And the woman reaching out and touching Jesus. There's power in touch. When I was working at Children's Mercy, I heard a lecture one time by a physician who bought into the notion of the power of touch. In the lecture, the physician told the audience, the group, that said he had a practice that whenever he was working with a patient, he made sure that he would touch the patient at some point in the exam, no matter what the appointment was. Why, he would intentionally listen to the heartbeat of the patient. He would ask them to stick out their tongue and press down on the tongue to look inside the throat. He would touch their skin to make sure that things were smooth and as they should be. He told the story that one time there was an older gentleman who was dying. And they tried everything that medically they could do, but there was nothing that science could do to prolong life. And so the patient, transitioned to hospice care. And they worked together for a while to make him comfortable, but then the man was on his deathbed, and the man and the physician knew that probably this was going to be the day that he was going to die. And so when the physician walked into the room to say his goodbyes, to offer his blessings to the man, the man, when he saw the doctor walk in, instinctively started to unbutton his shirt. He was getting ready for the physical exam. They both knew the exam would do no good. It's of no worth. But the physician reflected on that and said, maybe the man was paying attention. When I touch the patient, I'm communicating, I see you. You're not just an object. You're not just a disease or an illness. You are a person. The power of touch. I think Jairus knew something about this. I think the religious leader was on to something when he goes up to Jesus and says, come, Jesus, lay hands on my daughter, touch her, so that she may be well and that she may live. Jairus knew something about the power of touch. That woman who was hemorrhaging, who was bleeding, knew something about the power of touch when she said to herself, if I but touch his clothes, I will be made well. The power of touch. Of course, it wasn't just these two persons, these two characters in Mark's story. No, the power of touch is littered throughout all of the Gospels. Jesus touches the hand of Peter's mother-in-law, and immediately her fever leaves her. There's a story of the funeral procession in which the bier is walking down the street, and Jesus touches the bier that holds the corpse, and the dead man sat up and began to speak. Jesus touches the skin of people who are filled with leprosy. They're contaminated with a skin disease. Jesus touches the eyes that are blind. He opens the ears that are deaf. He lets loose tongues that are tied up. Mark will even hyperbolically say that wherever Jesus went, whether it was into villages or cities or farms, the whole crowd laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged Jesus that they might even touch the fringe of his cloak. And Mark will say, and all who touched it were healed. You see, when Jesus touches, skin is cleansed, eyes can see, ears are opened, tongues speak. When Jesus touches, life is restored and renewed. It would be easy, though. It would be easy to hear these stories and understand them from a sense of a supernatural, even magical, medicinal perspective that happened sometime in antiquity in the pages of Scripture some 2,000 years ago. It's easy to convince ourselves that those stories are the stories of old, but those things don't happen today, in our time, in our place. And it'd be easy to understand that only Jesus is the one who has the divine power of touch. But what if? What if this awareness of divine touch continues to happen to today? What if the power of touch that brings wellness is still ongoing and is not exclusive to Jesus? What if? Well, it's ludicrous, I know. But what if you and I, each one of us, with the spark of divinity and creativity in us, what if each of us are divine bearers of divine touch? What if you and I are meant to touch the world in ways that give life, that bring about more wholeness, that make things more well? I'm convinced. The power of touch happens in so many ways if you and I have the gumption and the confidence to embrace it. Divine power of touch happens with expressions, with words that are spoken, with smiles. It's attitudes that you carry and you offer others. The divine power of touch happens each time you reach out to someone with kindness and compassion. My goodness, it happens, God forbid, when you forgive someone. when you offer a warm welcome. It is felt every time that you extend love, when you embody hope, when you speak a word of encouragement, and you offer a sense of affirmation. The power of touch takes place when you listen, when you sit with someone and you offer your presence, when you create space in your life for someone else. I remember as a young boy, about that age, listening to the sermons of Dr. Alan Walworth. Now, that name might not mean anything to you, but that was the first preacher that I remember as a young child. And I remember as a young child listening to the stories of Dr. Walworth, and he told stories that I could understand. I thought to myself for the very first time, maybe I could do something like that. Maybe I could help tell stories that help people understand God more broadly and more deeply. What I'm trying to say is that even as a young child in young grade school, I felt the divine power of touch. I remember sitting around the breakfast table at my grandparents' house. Now, my granddad is one of the smartest people that I know. In fact, he was the first person to graduate with a PhD in electrical engineering that, God forbid, he was from Auburn University, but I pray for his soul. But I remember sitting around that breakfast table and one time him explaining to me what his dissertation was about. Now, I also remember around that same breakfast table, regularly he would ask me questions of how I see God, of how I perceive God, of how I feel about God. Around that table as a young person, I remember, you know what? You don't have to check your brain at the door when you think about faith and about God. If a PhD in electrical engineering can also perceive and relate to God, then maybe there is a marriage between those two, and you and I should analytically and creatively think and perceive about God. You don't check your brain at the door. What I'm trying to say is I felt the power of touch by my grandfather. I remember when I was doing CPE in Little Rock and hearing stories of my chaplain supervisor. And the halls of the hospital echoed his name because some 20, 30 years later, during the height of the AIDS epidemic, my supervisor would go into rooms with patients who were ill with AIDS. He would take off his gloves and touch their hands. It's a bold statement. That's a bold move at that time. You don't touch folk with AIDS, especially in the hospital. But my supervisor knew that there's power in touch. And when those people came into the hospital, no one ever touched them skin to skin. There was always some sort of barrier there. That supervisor touched me because he helped me realize that pastoral care takes risks. Pastoral care works towards looking at people and not as objects or diagnoses or simple stories. It's divine power in touch. A few years ago, when I was looking at the committee structure here at Holmeswood, I noted that 9 of the 10 committees were chaired by women. I looked at the names: woman, chair, woman, chair, woman, chair, woman, chair. You touched me for a sense of divine power. The God's movement and God's goodness and God's calling is not limited to a particular section, but is in everyone. There's power in touch, is what I'm saying. And last month was the very first time that Aaron and I bought diapers for Darcy. Remember, over a year ago when we were pregnant, y'all bought diapers and wipes for us? That lasted us almost a complete year. Parenting is hard. Parenting can feel lonely and tiring at times, but you touched Aaron and me in a sense of security and divine power and touch. Say, you're not alone. We're in this thing together. You see, I'm convinced These kinds of touches happen in so many different ways and are happening all around us. And they are divine, and we must name them. They are filled with power. They give courage. They open your eyes to see something new. They invite you into your better self. They give confidence. They tell you at times truth that you do not want to hear, but you need to hear. They heal you. Imagine with me. Look back on your life. Think back. Who are the people that you have known for a really long time? Or maybe you just met them. And there's something about them. It's like you want to rub up against them. You want to nestle close to them. There's some sort of life and power that if I were just to rustle and nestle up against them, something will sprinkle off of them and fall unto me, and I will be made better, made well. There's power in divine touch. Similarly, if you're honest with yourself, I suspect that there are people whom you have extended the power of touch to. At some point in their life, they might have written you a note or pulled you aside and said, do you remember when you did this? When you said that? That touched me. That changed me. And sometimes you don't have any idea of what they're talking about at all. But there is power of touch that you offer them. And when you live into the power of touch, you make a difference. Pastorally, what in your life needs to be made well? What needs to be touched? Maybe you need to let your guard down. Maybe you need to embrace and learn that you really are loved, that you really are worthy of being touched, of being seen, of being named. Maybe it means admitting that once in a while, you are not well, and you need divine touch. What if? What if you and I were to look around for those places and people in our lives, in your life, that need to be touched, that need to be made well? What if you were the one to reach out, to help someone? What if you are the one to embody hope, to lend a bit of courage, to embody love, to invite a way forward? Y'all, I don't know what all might be accomplished through that. I don't know what might change. I don't know what difference can be made. But I do know this. When the woman touches Jesus' cloak, Jesus turns to her and touches her with his gaze. Never touches her. Touches her with his gaze and says, "Go in peace." Go in peace. Maybe the power of that divine touch is what allows everyone to go in peace. Maybe that is the power of touch.
Pray that you have been touched this morning by the divine through the music, through the sermon, through the children, through the neighbor sitting next to you, through the gaze across the room. The Spirit is here, and she is making us whole. As we respond to this touch this morning, there are many ways that you can continue touching others. You can share your offering with us, with this church, which we will then share with the world through the gifts that you bring. You can come forward as we prepare to sing and offer your gifts here at the front. If you're online, you can donate by texting GIVE to the number on the screen or scanning the QR code. You also may want to respond to this touch this morning by coming forward and asking to learn more about joining this church or about baptism and following Jesus in this way. And Pastor David will be here at the front to pray with you if you would like to respond with some prayer. At this time, be attentive to the movement that God has placed within you as we sing.
Jesus, draw me ever nearer as I labor through the storm. You have called me to this passage, and I'll follow though I'm worn. May this journey bring a blessing. May I rise on wings of faith, and at the end of my heart's testing, with your likeness let me wait. Jesus, guide me through the tempest. Keep my spirit stayed and sure. When the midnight meets the morning, let me love you even more. May this journey bring a blessing. May I rise on wings of faith, and at the end of my heart's testing, with your likeness let me wait. Let the treasures of the child form within me as I go, and at the end of this long passage, let me leave them at your throne. May this journey bring a blessing. May I rise on wings of faith, and at the end of my heart's testing, with your likeness let me wait. And at the end of my heart's testing, with your likeness let me wait.
It's been so good to share this space with you. There's power in touch. A very practical way that you can practice that power is holding little babies during the worship service and during BFG. On the table out there is a sign-up sheet that you heard it was announced last week that, her name has left me. Colleen has now been hired as our nursery worker. She's one person during BFG and worship. We need two. That's for safety and protection. But we need you. I'm asking for some pastoral chips to be cashed in right now. Darcy is in that awkward stage of where she's not old enough to be right there, but she's too young for Aaron to fully engage in worship. As well as we're going to have new folk coming in, and we need to be prepared to hold their children. So as you exit there, sign your name on there, and my hope is that when I leave here, that list is filled up for the rest of the summer. That's the gauntlet I'm throwing out. Sign up. If you have questions, talk to Tammy. Practice the power of touch. For all of us. The goodness of God is all around you and is in you. You have been touched by Christ because Christ is in you. And as people of peace, you are called to embody that peace, to embody that hope, to embody that love. You are called to touch the world all around you. May you go as people of peace and of hope and of love and of joy. May all of us go in peace with a song in our soul.
Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Amen. Go in peace.